Alrighty, Malinovka. Yeah, about the same comp team. You've got bigger heavies, they've got bigger mediums, but the average comp is about the same. There's one big RD, so that's slightly painful. So you can start heading towards the hill, but especially when you're in a heavy and you know that your mediums are outclassed, you always have to watch and see what your faster tanks are doing ahead of you, because it's a difficult situation to push this hill in a heavy if they've already got control up here. Especially when you don't want to get hit by artillery. But it's something where you always got to watch and see what your team is doing. And that's why we always say in the stream, 30 to 60 seconds into the game, take a little peek at the mini-map and see what your team is doing. So the Action X is headed up there. It looks like the PTA is headed into that area, but based on his trajectory, he might come into this area here. Most of the rest of the team is still in your base, which is not very good. And you don't need to go quite so far back in a heavy. You can really just come up through this side right here, and that's far enough back that unless they completely YOLO down here, they won't spot you. Especially when you know that it's sort of like a time-limited option. And so you're looking at what's going on ahead of you now. You've really got this one Action X up here, and that's it. So like if you're this Action X, going up here is fine, but as soon as you get up here, whatever you spot, you got to turn around and come back. Because there's no amount of tanks there, short of no tanks, that you're going to really be able to compete with without any support. Especially given their likely comp that's going to be up there. But, it's important to look. And so you can start heading up there as well, but you have to be thinking you always have to be keeping in your head of what's my exit plan. What if this guy gets jumped by all three of their mediums? What's my exit plan? Because what you cannot do is you do not want to get stuck in this 6, 7, 8 area where you're basically in no man's land. Right, so he makes contact with that Leo up here. And you do have some guys coming up here, right? But they're all slow rollers. They're all taking their time. They haven't put any pressure through this side. Presumably they will at some point, but it's fine. You're already up here. You don't want to take this low ground. Like, see where this medium is? It's a really, really dangerous area for a medium. You definitely don't want to run into your teammates either. You can ignore the low ground. The thing about the low ground is that the low ground can control the low ground, but the high ground can control the low ground and the high ground. So the low ground really can't do anything about the people on the high ground, but the people on the high ground can, whenever they want, go down and shoot the low ground. So they don't have enough up here yet to stop you. They have that Leo, right? But that Leo's too far in position. So what you want to do is exactly what you did. Get to the backside of this windmill. Try not to get set on fire, but what are you going to do? And you don't want to back up too far, because if you back up too far, if he moved his artillery into this area, he can actually shoot this side of the windmill. Oops, wrong button. So you got to be careful. But otherwise, yeah, what you're doing is appropriate. You want to take out this, you want to punish this 111. And remember, the sides of the 215B are not really that strong. All you're doing is minimizing the profile for what he has to shoot on. And where he died is perfect, because where he died actually gives you a very nice hull down here where you can go and shoot that Leo if you want. And then again, remember, you actually want to stay a little bit closer to the windmill. You really didn't need to repair that track. You were reasonably artillery safe. Nothing else was really going to shoot you. And now you have an opportunity to catch them in the no man's land. And then really all you have to do here is keep them, make sure that they stay lit. Get shots of opportunity when you can. But basically, if you make sure that they stay lit, then you're doing fine. Because that's basically going to allow your artillery and your guys down here to get shots for free. And so their GW Tiger just shot. So you want to always take that opportunity. Always look at the time up in the corner over here, right? You look up, glance at the upper right, and you know that your buddy got popped at about 11:05, right? And that gives you a good, let's say, 35-40 second window. Right, so that'll give you about to like 10:30. And you know, since the GW Tiger was already aiming over here, that he's probably going to continue to aim over here. So you know that in about 10 seconds, he's going to be ready to re-click. So you need to start considering your exit plan or how you're going to dodge this arty shell that's presumably incoming. There it is. And so again, you know, right, because you're the one that got hit now, you know when you got hit at about 11:25 or so, and so you know that you have about a 35-40 second window. So that gives you to about, you know, 9:40. Yes. So then again, you know, once that time starts rolling around, you gotta start thinking about your exit plan, how you're gonna avoid the arty shell. And you want to look and see what's going on in your team. You've lost the base, but that's actually not that big of a deal. You do have this E3 here. You kind of wish that he was closer. You don't really need a whole lot of help down here against these guys, but you want to, if you can get shots of opportunity, especially as your IS-7 pushes down there, you want to be ready for that. That doesn't look like a very good shot. Like, you'd rather move forward a little bit and shoot the Oho than try to snipe the T-30 between some rocks. And then again, as long as you're not being lit, you can just, you know, make sure, well, obviously, once you get lit, then you need to move a little bit more. But as long as you're not being lit, you know, there's no reason for you to feel like you need to keep shifting around. Just make sure that you aim in, be fully aimed in, and every time you're loaded, you want to get that shot off. Right, again, it's the shifting. And then see how this guy's moving in on these guys over here. You have the action X back, but see where this bat chat is at right now. You can actually get really good shots on him if he tries to crest that ridge to get at your guys. You can get shots at him from the top of this hill. So you want to look to that. Like, this bulldog is pretty irrelevant to the team. It's like these guys really that are spotting your dudes down there. And you have to remember, because they have guys over in this area, right? And it's likely that the Centurion Action X and Ferdinand did not stop there. They're likely they moved up, right? You know that they're not on their cap, but you know that they're on this side. So they're going to be in a position where they can shoot up towards this hill if they move far enough over. So you need to cover this Action X over here. Like, winning this side is a little bit less important than not losing this side, because once these guys are gone, right, they can already put cap pressure on if they want, and you don't really have a whole lot that can go back and counter that. So you need to keep an eye out for that. At this point, the artillery is probably more important to take out than the Pershing, although the Waffle got him, so that's fine. And again, you know, you can still worry about these guys over here. So what you should do is actually go back and crush this side. Because especially when you don't think that these guys are going to push out at you, what you want to do is you want to handle, like, I think the big problem that a lot of people have whenever they get into these types of situations is that they don't think about the whole idea of splitting or combining their forces. And especially when you're outnumbered, what you don't want to do is further split yourself. You don't want to change this into a 2v3 encounter over here and a 1v2 encounter over here. Like, that's to nobody's real advantage. What you really want to do is make this a 3v3 encounter over here and a 0v2 over here, right? So that your focus should be on winning this side and making sure that these guys stay alive, ideally, right? Rather than splitting it up and saying, all right, you guys take your overmatched situation over here, I'll take my overmatched situation over here, and let's hope that we can win both, right? That's not the best decision to make. Even if you're sitting here going, oh yeah, I could take these guys, right? I could take a 34-2, a tier 8 tank, and a tier 7 light tank. I could take that. Even if you're thinking that's not the right choice, because you're making it that much harder for your guys on this side. And that's what's important to point out. Especially as you see, like, these guys are flanking where your E3 is at. See how they're pushing in on your guy right there, and you're shooting at this 34-2, right? Like, you need your team alive, not just for ammo reasons, but you want to keep your team alive just as a general rule of thumb. Right, but you did this is a mistake that you see all the time. Like, instead of moving to make it even over here, you basically split and made it 2 mismatches for the enemy in the favor of the enemy. So that's fine. And so a couple of things. So you started heading up towards the hill, which is fine. That's something that I agree with. Even though you only had one action X in front of you, that's still fine. That's something that I agree with. You just, on your way up, you need to make sure that you have an exit plan about what you're going to do. If multiple tanks jump him, if no tanks jump him, what are you going to do? You ended up getting a good spot on the backside of that windmill, which they allowed you to have, right? They had the speed to get there before you. Even that WZ-111 could have boxed you out there if he wanted, but they didn't, and so that's good. And so you were able to take advantage of that and stay relatively already safe and take them down. And then you get them in no man's land, which is perfect. That's all you really need to do. You need to be a little bit more aware of artillery. One of the things that I recommend doing is, whenever, especially when there's only one artillery, get a feel for when people get shot or when an artillery shell lands next to you, ostensibly from the other team, and take a glance up at the time, what time that was. And just, even if you don't want to think about, okay, well, what's the reload time of a GW tag, or what's the just look at it and give yourself 30 seconds and say, in 30 seconds, I got 30 seconds of safe time where all I got to do is be concerned about direct fire, and then I got to start thinking about artillery, especially if the shell just landed next to me, because more than likely the artillery is not going to all of a sudden start aiming someplace else. If he fired at you and you're still in the same quadrant, and you were still in the same 30 meters of where his last shell landed, he's probably still going to be aiming at you. Right, and so you need to be able to time that, and that would have saved you a pretty significant chunk of health, and also your engine as well. And then again, the biggest mistake though was coming off of this hill. Was the problem. And again, I think people get a little bit too caught up in these pushes down the 0 line or down one flank when you've already lost the other flank. You kind of need to be able to be sure that you're not going to completely lose the back here. Ideally, what you want to do is not lose either of them, but if you need to lose one or the other, like, you need to save those guys in that back area, in my opinion. And then once those guys that push down here, that ISM and that Waffle were not very awesome players, but once they push down here, right, they eventually reach a point where you can't really help them out that much. But these guys, right, that they were getting pressure on them. It wasn't a question of whether these guys were going to get pressured back in your base or not. They already were. And so what you needed to do is get yourself into a position where you can actually support them, especially when you know that you're running low on ammo. You need to start thinking about how to win the game. And sometimes how to win the game is not, okay, well, I need to continue to shoot one side. Sometimes it's, okay, I need to figure out how to keep these guys alive so that they can use their ammo, because I no longer have any, to deal damage. And whether that's you literally just driving over there and fronting for them, being a human shield or whatever, if that's what it takes to win, then that's what it takes. But that's one of those sort of mistakes I see, or in my opinion, what I feel is a mistake that I see a lot of people do, is that in these situations, they split, right? If it's a 1v4, instead of, and the enemy has 2 guys on one side and 2 guys on the other side, and you only have 2 people left on your team, I often see those guys split, and one guy goes and fights these guys over in a 1v2, and the other guy goes and fights the other 2 guys in a 1v2, and that makes no sense to me at all. To me, what you should always do is try to maximize the odds in your favor, and then let these guys just, stand around with their, in their hands, right? And in the meantime, what you needed to do was try to win this, and then these guys could then turn around and deal with the rest, especially when you know that you're already running low on ammunition. So that's something to keep in mind when you're doing that. Time Artie, look and sort of, it's not just where you can get the, like, it would have been very easy for you to bully these guys that were here, like we noted, right? It's a tier 8 medium tank and a tier 7 light tank. But sometimes it's not about just bullying, especially, again, if you're low on ammo. A lot of times it's about, okay, I need to try to keep my guys over here alive. And so that's something that you should keep in mind. Oops, wrong button. Oh, and I don't have... Oh, there we go. All right, so if we look at the stats, you actually got a decent amount out of your team. It wasn't a horrible game. Their guys in there that came through your base just ripped up your team, though. That's very sad. 22 of 34 is not awesome. A lot of those snipey shots, the 215B gun has really good accuracy and really good handling. But some of those shots were a little sketchy. But at that time, I don't think that any of them were necessarily bad. Especially when you start getting lower in the ammo count, you need to start being a little bit more selective in what you shoot. And again, don't forget that the entire point that I'm trying to make from this replay is you got to be sure to be aware of the situation in terms of what your team needs you to do. Like or we can flip that even. What you need your team to do, right? You needed your team to be alive to deal some damage at the end, because short of you ramming everybody to death, you were out of ammo, right? You didn't have enough ammo to kill everybody there, and so you needed to find some way to try to help keep your guys alive. But GG, well played. Nice try. Alrighty, and so next would be Sergeant Pepper's MT25 game on Windstorm. Windstorm is not a very good scout map, unfortunately. Alrighty, so tier 7 games, so it's just a +1 game, so that's actually good for you. And then so from this spawn, from this east spawn, from either spawn, I think it's important to play the middle to start, at least to try to figure out a little bit about what they send either through the middle or through the north side here. And so from this east spawn, I usually hang out at least right here to start, because you can see through this area really well, so you can see what they send north. And if you don't see anything, that means that they didn't send anything that way, right? And so you can just go around and keep that in mind as far as, where the enemy tanks are not. Otherwise, you can potentially play up through this area here, which allows you to spot through there. It's not quite as helpful. Usually you'll see faster, like medium tanks move through that area if they do. Usually they don't move that far forward, though. You can also do a run through town if you want, but again, because the heavy tanks are all going to be slow and they spawn further away, it's a little bit more sketchy. So driving up here like this is a little bit aggressive. You have to take into account the speed of their team, because you don't want to get yourself ISO'd out here. Like, you can do like a little bit of a loop, but what you'll notice is one of two things: that the faster tanks that come up here will be able to get free shots at you, and the slower tanks that are headed this way you won't actually spot, because they'll still be down the hill. So that's you can do what you just did, and it's just a little bit too much risk for, well, it's too much risk for too little reward, generally speaking. And moving over here is fine, but what I don't like about this particular position is that there's nothing that you can't spot from here, really, that you can't spot from back there, right? So you can spot through this river area here, but very rarely do people actually drive through that river. And even if you do spot them driving through that river, nobody can really shoot them. So like right now, you're not actually spotting nearly anything for your team, and you got lit by something, I'm not sure what. And so the MT-25 does have a little bit of a pew-pew gun on it. It's got the 57 on it, but it's not a horrible gun. It's just a low alpha nibbler. You don't want to face off with that T-37, especially if he's got the clip, because he can hurt you extremely badly. His gun control is a little bit worse than yours, though, so if he wants to snipe from a distance, you can out-snipe him, but that's not really the strength of this tank. The strength of this tank is really the speed. Like, you can't shoot that T-67. You should probably, yeah, just zoom in there. And there's no need to keep firing at him. This Tiger P is in a bad position, right? Because pushing through this river from either side really is just not a good plan. And again, this is a lot like, you know, we were playing our at the beginning of the stream, we were playing our T-54 lightweight on Winterberg. And if you go over to his side and you're completely outnumbered, right, you're not going to be able to beat these guys, you know, in your MT-25, even when you did have that Tiger P and whatever it was still alive, right? You're not going to be able to beat those guys in your MT-25. So what you want to do is, early as you can, as soon as you identify, oh, I'm not going to be able to do anything here, you want to be move over the other side and see if you can make something happen on that other side. And so this is fine. And so you can sit behind this guy or you can sit on the side of him. You do want to try to put some pressure through here, especially through the backsides here. When the enemy is occupied, a lot of times you can move in with your light tank and get some easy shots on them. Like, I would be more concerned about this KV-2, right? Because the KV-2 is in imminent danger of killing your, or is about to kill your T-43. And he's also the guy that can potentially one-shot you. You do not really have suppression there. So you could have potentially saved that T-43, so just something to keep in mind. Just because somebody is easy to shoot, like that Easy 8, doesn't necessarily mean that he's the best target for you to shoot. So this T-29 is going through there, but he's going to be able to kill that natural arm before you can react. You're not going to be able to take that guy head on. So again, this is a situation where it's probably better to go back. And again, especially when you're in a light tank or a fast tank in general, and the tanks that are left are heavy, like there's that basically full health T-29, you have so much of a speed advantage over that T-29 that you can shoot that guy from here. You can be shooting that guy right now. You can help save your buddy. I would push him. Like, you know, again, that T-29 is way back here, right? And so what you really want to do is you want to get as far away from the T-29 as possible. Force the T-29 to always be chasing you around the map. You probably should have tried to close the gap on that guy while he was hiding behind the house. Again, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to get yourself in a position where the T-29 catches up behind you and this Rudy is still alive. And you also don't want to push directly into the T-29, because pushing into the T-29 is to his advantage, not yours. But again, if they're not going to be putting cap pressure on you, you can always just move away. And you're better off going around behind this guy, because you already have the Leopard on one side. He's a non-turreted tank destroyer. And so you want to close this gap as quickly as you can. And you know that if the T-29 is shifting over, you've still got some time. Theoretically, you can outcap them, just if you both get on cap, take down the Crusader. You don't want to curl away, you always want to just move towards the artillery, because you're basically buying him time right now, and you never want to buy your enemy time. You always want to put pressure on your enemy in situations like this, especially when you know that it's a time-limited offer, because that T-29 is coming towards you, that Rudy is coming towards you. So you don't want to delay there. So now capping is no longer really an option, you just don't have the time to do it. So the best thing to do is actually just try to get away, right? You know the T-29 is probably coming back through here, that you know where the Rudy's at, but you can still squeeze by over on this side. And what you want to do is you don't want to trade against these guys in a very close situation. You want to keep them at a distance. So what you don't want to do, you need to get out of here. You don't want to allow them to close the gap, and you especially do not want to allow them to close the gap for free. And then this is a similar situation that we were talking about in that last game. It's a 2v2, right? And they've got one really slow guy. And instead of going 2v1 against this Rudy, what you're doing is you're telling this Leo, okay, you go ahead and take the Rudy, I'll take the T-29, and if we both win our 1v1s, then we win this game. But neither of those are good situations, right? A Leopard doesn't really have a good chance against a Rudy, and an MT-25 doesn't really have a good chance against a T-29. But together, you very easily could have taken out this Rudy, gotten away from this T-29, before this T-29 was even in an area where he could do something. Right, and then now just run away. So see, that was a good decision. And then what you want to do is get this guy basically in right angles. So if he's pursuing the Leo in one direction, you want to be shooting at him from a 90-degree angle. And so what you don't want to do is go groove yourself like this, because basically what you've done is you've put yourself in an alley against a heavy tank. And that, yeah, not usually going to be good for you. Okay, so just run away. And then all you got to do is completely run away. And then so in situations like this, again, distance is your friend. You just want to keep them at a long distance. Use your superior view range. Get some pot shots on them. You know, this is a big open map for the most part. And use that vision advantage that you have to basically outrange him. So like for example right now, he's going to come out of this ditch in this direction. So if you go up on this hill over here, you can spot him as he comes out of that ditch and get some free shots on him and then bail. So again, what you want to do is keep him as far out as you possibly can. And you don't want to be near buildings, right? Because you don't want to have a situation where you guys are just basically turning corners looking for each other. Because again, the closer he is to you, the greater his advantage. The further he is away from you, the more advantage that you have. And so you can go up by this little windmill here. See how he's still headed south? So see how he just turned around? So you know that that's something where you can go over here. And what you want to do is you want to create that gulf. But you want to keep an eye on him. You don't want there to be long periods of time where you don't know where he is. So you always want to create situations where you can keep him lit, get 1 or 2 shots, keep moving, get 1 or 2 shots, keep moving, get 1 or 2 shots, right? Where he never even spots you. You don't want to go through long periods of time where you're like, alright, I'm not sure where he's at. Because then all of a sudden you got to start hunting again. Especially when it's a slow tank and you're a fast tank. And again, you don't close the gap for him. You can even set off their cap if you want him to draw him back. I wouldn't hang out there, but you can pass through it, because passing through it tells him, hey, this is where I am. So like you could pass through this cap and then go back that way. You could pass through this cap and go out that way. You just don't want to stay there once you tick it. But avoiding it though makes it so that you're not sure where he's gone. If you set it off, chances are he'll come to investigate, or at least he'll understand that you're still on this half of the map. Because for all he knows, you just left, right? And you're over in A0 right now. And again, so what you want to do is you want to create a situation where you're not spotting it, where you're not turning a corner and then running into him. So you want to scout through all the open areas. And then always have an exit plan of, if he's right here, then where do I go? If he's right here, then where do I go? So he's on your cap. And so again, it's usually easiest to reset the cap from down here. So all you got to do is come over into this area over here and you should be able to reset it. He's giving you an opportunity, use that opportunity. And again, remember, all you got to do is hit him in the track. And so if he's going to sit on cap, that's excellent for you. You just need to get a little bit further away. You need to get more distance, because you can still outspot him. You just need to get a little bit further away and then just whittle him down. So he's only going to spot you if you shoot. So if you just drive back up towards that hill, you can spot him. Or if you drive this way, you can spot him, but he's going to spot you as well. You can come over by these trees over here. And again, remember, all you got to do is just get your distance on him and then get your shot. He missed again. He's giving you an opportunity to shoot him. He's giving you an opportunity to shoot him. He's giving you an opportunity to shoot him. There's a window right now where you can shoot him. And so you always want to try to get resets when you can so that you're not pressed for that time. Right, and so you got to reset. Now be patient. And then again, you need to just get a greater distance. So if you drive back up over here, you're only getting lit when you shoot. So you just need to create a little bit more of a gap there for yourself, because he's not going to be able to out camo you. And again, remember, all you got to do to reset is actually just shoot the track. He can't actually shoot you from that side. And then again, you just need to get a bigger distance. He's not spotting you until you shoot. So, okay, well in this particular case he did, just because you're so close, but you just need to get a greater distance between you. Luckily, he's not a very good shot. You're just not getting very good opportunities here because you're not controlling the distance of this encounter very well. Oh, and you don't want to charge him. No! Lol. Not sure why you slowed down there. You could have kept going. So yeah, I mean, the biggest problem at the end there was just you didn't control that distance. Again, you know, as long as you were more than, I don't know, it was probably like 150 meters away. He wasn't really, well, maybe a little more, maybe like 175 meters away. He wasn't really spotting you until you shot. So a lot of times, though, what you can do is you drive through this area, right? And if you light him, just keep going, right? Do a little curl out. And if you get lit, then you can just go, keep going and hide. If you don't get lit, you curl out a little bit, get to as far away as you can, get your shot. If you don't get lit, then you can, continue shooting until he repositions. And a lot of times you can outrange him that way. You can also use bushes. There aren't really a whole lot of bushes here that you can use. There are some trees down here that you potentially use. And especially you need to just use all the map. Like, again, I really felt like you could have come into this area over here and basically outranged him. But who knows? You also could have relocated down here as well. You just need to control that distance a little bit more. And then before that, it's just, I think a lot of playing a light tank is relocating, realizing that your guys up on this north side early on were outnumbered, and going someplace else, because you weren't really going to be able to help those guys. Because you weren't going to be able to push into those tanks with your light tank very effectively. You potentially could have come through this middle and potentially flanked them, but that's about it. I think coming over here was a good idea. You could have kept your you could have possibly kept your T-43 alive by focusing on the KV-2 rather than the EZ-8. So target selection is also something that's really important. And the general rule of thumb that I have is try to keep your teammates alive. Even if they're not very good players, you need to try to keep them alive. If you've got a choice between keeping somebody alive and just, and shooting somebody else that's not somehow more important, try to keep your team alive. And so if we look at stats, yeah, you didn't get a whole lot out of your team there, unfortunately. But a lot of those guys that pushed through the river, that's not a very good play, and they paid for it pretty severely. Otherwise, I thought you did pretty well. I thought you could have done a lot better, again, ranging that T-29. Whenever you're in a light tank or even a medium tank against a slow heavy, a heavy tank that's significantly slower than you, you got to learn to control that range. And once you learn to control that range, you can literally shoot him, and there's nothing that he can do about it. All he can do is try to blind fire. And short of that, he's not going to be able to he shouldn't be able to touch you. So work on controlling that range when you're in those types of situations, because you want to keep that huge gap between them. Because once you close that gap, that's to his advantage. GG though, nice try. Alright, and next is Cyntank's WZ-111 on Siegfried line. No, RNG is part of the game. There wasn't, on the same token, there wasn't any reason for you to stop there. There's this saying for when you assume things. I don't remember what it is, but I'm sure it's somehow applicable to that. Alright, so you're playing Assault. There's only 2 tier 10s, so it's not too bad. So when you play Assault, really what you want to do initially is come towards this middle area here and sort of start here, and then you can work around these outsides. What you don't want to do is you don't want to play too far out, because the way that their spawns work is that it's really easy for them to shoot out early. So generally what I'll do is I'll come in through, you can usually in a reasonably fast tank like the WZ-111, you have enough time to come across these tracks and then go north through here and then push up. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to basically drive along this outside here early. What you want to do is you want to clear them off of this C line and this sort of FG line first. You could also potentially clear through this middle area, but I find clearing through this, pushing through this middle area is generally tough. Generally, what's best, or at least what's most effective, is clearing out one of these lines, either this C line or this G line, and then moving along this that line to clear out the rest of their base. You need to be careful sitting in this middle here. This is an arty lane. Generally speaking, once you control this sort of CD line or this FG line, you can push those lines and be reasonably artillery safe. It looks like most of your guys are congregating on this D line, so you can go up through here if you want to push for them. You can peek through here, but again, be careful because this is an artillery lane here. And also, you want to keep an eye out for where that waffle's going to be. And so there's no real reason for you to go up that far and not get that shot. Because basically you exposed yourself, not necessarily to him, but like if there was somebody back here or if artillery was set up to fire down this lane, you exposed yourself to that shot for nothing, right? It wasn't like you're the one that lit that TVT-4 proto. You knew he was there. And you exposed yourself almost all the way to shoot him, but not quite. Which is not what you want. And you need to be watching up here right now. Because this lane, like protecting this lane, very rarely do people counter push through this area right here because it's too easy for them to be driving into a flank. Because you have to remember that on assault mode on of Siegfried line, this is an east-west map. Like normally it plays north-south, but this is currently an east-west map, so you have to play it as such. And so see how your guys are driving down into the middle of their teeth? That's not so good. What you want to do is sort of see where this 4202 is going. That's where you want to be. And ideally what happens is that these guys will put enough pressure like on this SP1C area to keep these guys honest from over here. And then you guys can clear out through here. And so you know the waffle's on the south, and pretty much everything else it looks like is on the north here. Your guys are all in this middle area. And again, remember, pushing through the middle is not good on an east-west map. Because, like, see how they're pushing in here, but see how the enemy's got a concave around them? Whenever you're pushing into an area where the enemy has a concave around you, that's almost always bad, right? You don't want to push into that concave. What you want to do is you want to hit one of those edges, right? You want to hit either this edge out here or this edge over here. And the reason why you want to do that is that if you hit this edge over here, these guys can't do anything about it. If you hit this edge over here, these guys can't do anything about it. If you drive through the middle, everybody gets to shoot you. So that's sort of the problem of pushing into those types of concave situations. And so, like, again, what your team needs is ideally not to be in this concave, but what your team needs to do is to push these guys back so that it reduces this concave here. Because right now, you can push towards these guys here, but then these guys all of a sudden get good shots into your sides, right? Because you're pushing into that section of the concave. But if these guys kill these light tanks or push them back, right, then that allows you to attack into here because this is the furthest part forward, right? But right now, again, your team is continuing to drive into that concave, which is not, I'm going to guess, end well for them. Right, and you still need to try to find ways to punish these guys over here so that they can't quite get your guys. So even if that means getting shot in the rear by the T-49, you need to try to like kill this T-4 proto. Lol. Or he can kill himself. Oh man, there's a Roomba back there. Right, and see, these guys still haven't sealed this side, so again, you're still in that concave, although I guess now it's more of just a flank. And so you could push this waffle, but in this particular case, I'm not entirely sure that that's the best plan of action. Trying to face off against the waffle, unless you know that for some reason that he's reloading, I don't think that's the best thing. I think it's best to catch these guys as they try to push into your flanks. And then don't forget they still have artillery. And a lot of times what artillery would do is hide back in this area, which doesn't really get them very good shots. Waffle-fied. You need to be careful trying to trade against the waffle like that, but luckily your 50B got him. That's why. And then now really what you guys need to do is take a chance, because you don't know where a lot of their tanks are right now. You need to take a chance and push one direction or the other, either this E75 over here and this room over here, and then hope that the T57 isn't on whichever side you choose. Since you're already next to the E75, I would say probably that way, rather than push back at the Roomba. But at this point, you need to take a chance, because you can't sit in the middle. Sitting in the middle is what's been getting your team killed, because you've really just been getting shot from, your entire team has just been getting shot from all directions for most of the game. And so what you want to do is you want to go whichever way your team is going. Again, you don't want to, in most cases when you're outnumbered, you don't want to create a situation where you're, okay, you guys take this side over here, I'll take this side over here. You generally all want to go in the same direction and try to do the same thing, because you need to try to create an overmatched situation in your favor. You don't want to try to create a bunch of 1v1s and 1v2s and things like that. You need to try to create that one situation that's in your favor where you can kill somebody before anybody else comes back. If you keep going forward, you'll get a shot on that guy. Okay. Well, at least you know where the T57 is. Like right now, you guys are still sitting in this position where you're in the middle and you're surrounded. And you always want to try to, again, whenever you find yourself in a position where you're surrounded like that, you always want to try to find a way to break out to one side or the other. Pick a side. It doesn't really matter. You know, it's no time to get picky. Just you know, find one side to break out on. Keep everybody in front of you, and then you can start dealing with what you're going to do, because you're already outnumbered, and you're not you specifically, but your team you're allowing yourself to get whittled down, because you're allowing the opponent to just basically stay surrounding you. And then you just want to, again, you still want to push out here. Ideally what you would do is you literally just run away and then turn around. Because what you don't want to do is stay where they already know you are. Because eventually they're going to figure out, hey, all I got to do is drive behind this guy. Oh. Getting a little dangerous. Ruh-roh. The 90 mil HE. Alright, anyhow. So I mean, again, the biggest problem was that your team basically drove themselves into a flanking fire. So they basically got shot from everywhere, and unfortunately you were guilty of that too. After you killed that T-54 Proto, you guys didn't attempt to seal the edge at all. What you then attempted to do was drive further into the concave, and although you eventually cleared out this side over here, they still had a bunch of guys on this side and a bunch of guys on this side, and you guys were the sandwich meat in the middle. And you don't want to do that. You never want to find yourself in a situation where you're getting shot from multiple angles, and you definitely want to avoid driving into that situation where you know that you're going to get shot from multiple angles. And whenever you do find, because sometimes on purely accidentally, you'll find yourself in that situation where you're like, oh, I didn't know that all those guys were over on this side. Right now I'm getting shot from here, I'm getting shot from here, I'm getting shot from here. Okay, so I need to get out, right? And either go back the way you came, break out to one side by killing one side. What you don't want to do is hang out here. And unfortunately, what hurt your team is that they really just hung out in that crossfire too often. So they really just basically had no chance. And again, when enemies are shooting all of your tanks from multiple angles, that is not going to end well, most likely. And so if we look at the stats, yeah, both teams did about the same. Not tremendously, not horribly. $11 for 18, some of those were a little bit long range, but not fantastic. But GG though, nice try. For a lot of that game, unfortunately, your team was just over the barrel.